Hello, everybody. So first of all, I'm trying to keep myself together because I am a crier. Okay, and everyone's story has been so profound. It's been so amazing, and it's been very, very, very encouraging. I just want to give a shout out to Quinella. I'm so proud of you, and I love you so much. And I'm happy to call you my friend, and I thank you for this opportunity. So I'll just jump right into it.
Oh, wow.
I'm Princess. I am you know, we do our spill. I'm a mom, I'm a wife of four, all of that. But I'm also a survivor. So I used to be so ashamed of myself and what I've been through because I was molested at a very young age, over and over again by a family member. And that molestation led to so many poor choices that I made that I didn't even recognize it. So, you know, a lot of times bad things happen and you bury it. It wasn't until I was getting ready to give birth to my first daughter at 23 that I actually confronted my abuser and asked, like, did this thing really happen? Like, am I remembering it right? And that's when it was confirmed for me that those things happened to me. Not to mention, you know, I grew up in a single family household. My mom was abandoned by her own mother and was sent to live with her father, who ultimately abandoned her as well. And she was raised by my grandmother in a very, very poor rural country environment. Just to give you a quick tidbit, my mom is just two generations from slavery. So she was raised in North Carolina in a slave environment, and lived on a plantation and everything. So, you know, my mom came up here, she was with my father, they separated. And my father, you know, as I've learned to grow up and forgive him, my father was a mental abuser. He mentally and physically abused my mom, and he mentally abused me. And I was always finding myself wanting to be a people pleaser. I want to please everybody. I want to make everything work for you. I want to be there for you. I want to heal you. I want to protect you. I want to do so many things for you because I never thought that I was good enough to do it for myself. I never thought that my talents were good enough. And then going through therapy and really being honest with my therapist, even to this day, we are still digging into the molestation and not just going surface level over the molestation because there's just so many things to unpack that you never realize that you deal with sexual trauma, you deal with promiscuity, you deal with so many things. So I have dealt with such a layer sometimes over the years of my own guilt of myself, and I never ever thought I was good enough. Um, I got married very young. I got married at 19, and that was not a good relationship for me to be in. I wanted to prove everybody wrong. So if you told me to go right, I was going left, and I was going to prove to you that left was the right way to go. And it wasn't. It was absolutely not the right way to go. So I got into my first marriage. I had my first daughter, and that marriage eventually became abusive physically, was already abusive mentally. We should have never been together. And I actually, you know, I left that situation and it got real toxic. But then, you know, we're in a place now where we're co parenting. But it left a lot of trauma on my daughter and myself as well. And it wasn't until that point that I got out of that marriage that I started to be like, okay, Princess, what do you want for you? What do you see for you? Do you feel like you're good enough to execute on the plans and goals that you have for yourself? And that's when that journey really started. So the journey started for me where I started to love myself a little bit more. I started to care about myself more. And I'm married again, which is a lot of people don't know that this is my second marriage. And within that second marriage, I had two children in a short amount of time. And with my second born son, I dealt with postpartum depression for years, like suicidal thoughts. I let myself go. I didn't care nothing about me. All I cared about was just going to work, being a wife, being there for my, you know, my children, but I was never there for myself. In 2019, I decided to get gastric sleeve surgery. I said, okay, you know what? I was 260 pounds. I was just out here not giving a who shot John about me. I didn't have my hair done, my makeup done, nothing. So when I decided to do that, I slowly started to love myself a little bit more. And after I had, well, prior to that, I had my second son, and I started writing my book. So that was the old journey. I started writing my book, Still Standing and Prayed Up. Still Standing. In the book, I did a lot of poetry. Growing up, poetry was everything to me. I always wrote poetry. I always wrote all the time. It was a healing mechanism for me. So during that time, I started writing my book. I got my surgery. I started loving myself a little bit more. I started caring about me a little bit more. And I always dealt with depression. And I resonated with Patricia because I always dealt with depression. I was taking depression medication for like the past 5 years because I thought I was depressed. I thought I couldn't do anything. I thought I wasn't good enough. I wasn't doing anything on task. And I shared this with Queen right before my 35th birthday. I tried to commit suicide. I didn't want to do any of this anymore. And a lot of that came from my youngest son, Christian. He is high functioning autistic and he's developmentally delayed. And that all happened during COVID, during 2020, when we got the diagnosis of what he was going through. Now, a few nuggets that got me through everything that I was going through. I'll get back to the suicide. I always had a strong relationship with God. That's one thing that my mom has always instilled in me. I always knew how to pray. I always knew how to lean upon him for strength. And I always knew how to go to the Bible for the things that I needed. And the one thing that I always love is gospel music. So if I'm going through something, I will turn on some gospel music and I will worship with God. I will get it out. I will cry. I won't let the world see me cry, but I will cry behind closed doors. So that was the one thing that definitely kept me strong, was my relationship with God. Fast forward to the attempted suicide. I remember just saying, that's it, I'm done. And when I tried it and I went into it, I really tried to end my life. I sat there on the floor crying because I could say, you know what? My children are home. What if my daughter, my oldest, what if my children walked in and all they did was find their mom dead? What would that do to them? What would that trauma look like for them? And that's when I decided, you know what? I have to love me more. And I got back into therapy. And then I realized that through my passion for helping other people, it actually was healing for me too. And it wasn't like just, you know how sometimes you can be a people pleaser? So you weren't really trying to help them. You really weren't working in your God given ordained talent. You were just being like, oh, you want green? I'll give you green. Versus really loving them from a place of where God ordained you to be. Once I started loving people from that place and I started digging into my passion, digging into what I got to, digging into what it was, and that was my relationship with God. And that is when I took the book that I wrote and started Still Standing and Prayed Up. And I know some of the women on here have been on my prayer call as well, and I appreciate that. I just started giving back that prayer because I was like, if I'm going through so much, if I'm so broken and I show the world that I'm so put together, I can imagine what other women, what other wives are going through, what other mothers are going through. Sometimes you feel hopeless and you feel like you cannot make it. You feel like you cannot sustain yourself. So I don't know if I'm pressed for time, but my nuggets that I take away that I am always consistent with is first my relationship with God, praying, being my authentic self, showing up as me wherever I go. And if whoever is around me does not like that, great. And also being okay with people leaving my life. If you don't want to be here, I don't want you here. If you're causing me stress and drama, I will cut you off completely. We will be done. And that's okay to do that. A lot of times we think when we leave people behind, we're hurting them, but you would rather hurt yourself. You'd rather be at war with yourself than at war with the world. I will be at war with the world and be at peace with myself. And that's something that I had to learn recently. Some things that I go by real quick is my path doesn't determine my future. My story doesn't define me. It's who I choose to be each and every day. I have to give myself grace and mercy. And I tend to do that more often than not. And I'm tending to learn to be transparent in the moment. And if I'm not okay, I'm not okay. I'm going to say I'm not okay. And I'm going to take my nap. And then I'm going to wake up from my nap and be like, all right, boom, I'm going to attack this day and I'm going to keep going. And the last thing that I wanted to say is because I do come from a very spiritual background, God calls the unqualified to be qualified. Never think that your past, your story, your mistakes, or anything that you've been through limits you from being a qualified person to help somebody else to overcome. Because Jesus did not go into the church and just go, Jesus went into the field to find the people. He was amongst the people because he wanted to be an impact to those that needed to be impacted the most. So I stay encouraged, stay loved. Journal. I have a journal I'm going to give to Queen Ella that I wrote that you guys can have and she can share with you guys. And just know that you are loved. I love you. And this is a safe space, a safe community. And I'm just happy to be here. So love y'all all.
Thank you so much, Princess. Oh my God. I did not know everything that you just shared. I knew nothing about. And I thought you've given your testimony numerous times. You've never shared this much. Speechless, completely speechless. One thing that keeps coming up is everyone saying, give